Al2O3.2H2O. This is the ore that we use to extract aluminium. We know the...
So you can write the name of ore of aluminium.
Bauxite is Al2O3.2H2O. This is the ore that we use.
So you write the name of the ore. Try to write the name of the ore with the formula. Bauxite Al2O3.2H2O.
To extract aluminium. We know the first step is to get the concentrated ore itself. So we have to crush the ore, grind it, and then remove the gangue particles by using different techniques like hydrolytic method, magnetic separation, and froth flotation method. Once we get the concentrated ore, now our aim is to get the oxide from this concentrated ore. The oxide is used for the extraction of metal. So we always try to convert the ore into its oxide. So now we have the concentrated bauxite ore. We have to convert it into oxide. Let's see how we do that. So we have bauxite. We make it to react with NaOH, that is sodium hydroxide. So when bauxite reacts with sodium hydroxide, it forms NaAlO2, that is sodium aluminate, and water.
So in this particular state, you can remember one thing. In this case, you can mention a few points in addition to the equation. First, you write the concentration of sodium hydroxide. So near to sodium hydroxide, in bracket, you can mention the concentration of sodium hydroxide is near about 45%. So in bracket, you write 45% it is. At the same time, along with the arrow, you need to mention temperature and pressure. Here the temperature is near about 473 to 423 Kelvin. 473 to 473, 523. 473 is minimum and 523 is maximum. And the pressure is 35 to 36 bar. Pressure is near about 35 to 36 bar. So along with the equation, we need to remember these two. Okay, let us continue.
Then we take sodium aluminate. It is made to react with water. It forms sodium hydroxide back and a white precipitate of aluminium hydroxide.
So now write the second equation also. Al2 NaAlO2, that is sodium aluminate, reacts with the two molecules of water, forms NaOH plus AlOH thrice. There it is mentioned that it is a white precipitate. So write the second equation too. Written. Let us continue.
So this is the technique to get aluminium hydroxide from bauxite. This is a white precipitate. Now from aluminium hydroxide, it is very easy to get the oxide of aluminium. So we simply heat aluminium hydroxide, but the temperature is very high. So we have to heat aluminium hydroxide at 1000 degrees Celsius. It forms aluminium.
Now write the third equation. 2AlOH thrice, white precipitate, heated at a temperature of about 1000 degrees Celsius, gives alumina. Aluminum oxide is called alumina plus 3 water molecules. That is, 3 equations are related to the first part of extraction of aluminum. Clear?
Oxide, that is alumina, Al2O3, and it forms water. So from concentrated bauxite ore, our aim was to get the oxide of aluminium. So from bauxite, we use sodium hydroxide to get sodium aluminate. Then from sodium aluminate, we get aluminium hydroxide. Then we heat this aluminium hydroxide at 1000 degrees Celsius It forms the oxide of aluminium, which is known as alumina. So now we have the oxide. Our next step is to extract the metal from the oxide. That is, we have to remove oxygen from oxide. That is, we have to carry out the reduction of the oxide. So we have to carry out the reduction of the oxide, in this case, alumina.
So there are two stages in the extraction of aluminium. First stage is over and it is called the concentration of the ore. Second stage is reduction of aluminium oxide. Okay. So you put the number 2, second stage.
You remember the metal activity series that we have seen? Aluminium can be extracted from its oxide by electrolysis. So for aluminium, in order to extract it from its oxide, we have to carry out electrolysis. This process of electrolysis for aluminium was first carried out by two scientists, Hall and Herold.
So you can write the name of these two scientists because this method is called the Hall-Herold process. So write the name of the two scientists, Hall and Herold.
Both of them carried out the electrolysis of alumina to extract aluminium. In this process, we take alumina. So alumina decomposes or dissociates to give Al3 plus and O2 minus. In this
So write this first equation, aluminium oxide. That means alumina undergo electrolytic reduction, forms two ions. One is aluminium ion and other is oxide ion. So this is the first equation of the second stage.
electrolysis process, they also used two other electrolytes. The first one was fluorspar, that is CaF2. CaF2 dissociates to give Ca2 plus and fluorine ions, that is F minus. And the other electrolyte which was used is Na3Al6, that is cryolite.
And these two compounds are also important. First one is fluorspar, another is a cryolite. Why is it important? The second stage is called the electrolytic process. As you know, every electrolytic process associated with electrolyte. And in this case, along with the electrolyte alumina, two more compounds are to be added. And these two compounds are fluorspar and cryolite. So that's why these two compounds are important. So what is the purpose of adding these two during the process, that we will see later. So now you write these two equations, two more equations. One is related to calcium fluoride and second is related to cryolite, and keep it in bracket because this is not directly related to the process. So you can keep it in bracket, and the first one is only highlighted. First one is only important.
This dissociates to form Na plus, Al3 plus and F minus. We have to extract aluminium. We used alumina. Now we have to carry out the electrolysis of alumina in order to extract aluminium. So why did we use these two other electrolytes? We'll see why we use these two other electrolytes. But right now, electrolysis was carried out by using these three electrolytes. So now in the electrolytic solution, there are three positive ions, Al3 plus, Ca2 plus and Na plus. Again, there is Al3 plus. So there are three cations. And we know only one cation can be discharged at the cathode. Based on the position of the ion in the electrochemical series, we decide which cation is discharged at the cathode. So we have Na plus, Ca2 plus and Al3 plus. So we know the ion which is lower in the electrochemical series is discharged at the cathode. So
this point you can remember, okay? The position of the ion, if it is in the lower position compared to the other ion, that undergo reaction at the cathode, okay? So in this case, the position of aluminum is in the lower part. So that is why it is discharged at the cathode. So you can mention this point only. We don't want any electrochemical series here. Simply you can mention aluminum ion get discharged at the cathode. Okay.
In this case, Al3 plus lies below Na plus and Ca2 plus. So Al3 plus is the cation which is discharged at the cathode. So the reaction taking place at cathode is Al3 plus. Since it has 3 electrons less, so it takes up 3 electrons to form neutral aluminium.
So here you can remember that reaction at the cathode. Cathode is an electrode where reduction taking place. Reduction. So reduction is addition of electron. So aluminum and lose aluminum ion formed from aluminum atom by losing 3 electrons. When it gains the 3 electron back, it converted into aluminum atom. So write this equation, and above that equation you can mention reaction at a cathode. Okay, reaction at a cathode.
This is how we extract aluminium from its ore bauxite. Now, if we look at the anions present, there were 2 anions, that is fluoride and oxide, O2 minus. The halogens lie in this part of the electrochemical series, and the oxide or the hydroxide ion is always lowest in the electrochemical series. So again, based on the relative position, we know that oxide ion is discharged at the anode, and the reaction taking place is oxide ion is discharged at the anode. It loses 2 electrons to form an oxygen atom. This single nascent oxygen atom is not stable on its own, so it combines with another oxygen atom to form oxygen gas. That is.
This is the reaction you can mention again in your copy, and at the top you can mention reaction at anode. Anode is an electrode where oxidation takes place. Oxidation is the process of removal of electron. So oxide ion undergo oxidation forming oxygen atom. So two such oxygen atoms combine together to form oxygen gas.
Is O2. So oxygen gas is released at the anode and aluminium is formed at the cathode. So the aluminium which is extracted in this manner is 99.8% pure. So we further do not have to refine the metal, as by using Hall-Herold's process, the aluminium which we get is 99.8% pure. Now the question is, while carrying out this process, we use 2 other electrolytes. Why?
This is the question you can change in frame in this way. What is the role of calcium fluoride and fluorspar, calcium fluoride or fluorspar, and cryolite during the extraction of aluminum? Why do we use other electrolyte? There you can reframe the question like this. Okay, role of calcium fluoride and cryolite during the extraction of aluminum. What is the role? So reframe the question and listen the answer.
Why did we use those 2? Let's try to answer that. CaF2, this is used to increase the conductivity of alumina. Alumina itself is a non-conductor of electricity. And we know for electrolysis to take place, we need a good conductor. If we only use alumina, it will not conduct electricity, and hence aluminium cannot be separated.
So this point you can mention, that is the first role of calcium fluoride to increase the conductivity of alumina, molten alumina, increase the conductivity, because it itself is a bad conductor of electricity. Write the first point. This is the first point.
So we use CaF2 to increase the conductivity of alumina. Now why did we use Na3AlF6? That is cryolite. This is used to bring down the fusion temperature. Had we not used cryolite, the reaction would have taken place at 2050 degrees Celsius, which is a very high temperature to attain. So in order to bring down the temperature from 2050 degrees Celsius to 950 degrees Celsius, which is a temperature that can be attained, we use Na3AlF6.
So this also you can mention. This is the second use of electrolyte. That means cryolite. What is the function? Lowers the fusion temperature. Otherwise, it would have the melting point of 2050 degrees Celsius. Now that because of the presence of cryolite, the temperature decreases to 950 degrees Celsius. This is the second point. These are the two roles that you can remember. Hardik, noted the point?
Yes,
Hardik?
ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
So in Hall-Hérold's process, two other electrolytes, that is other than alumina, are used. Those two are CaF2 and Na3AlF6. Both of them have special purposes. CaF2 increases the conductivity of alumina and Na3AlF6 brings down the fusion temperature. And hence, we use these two electrolytes in the Hall-Hérold's process. What is the purpose of CaF2 during the electrolysis of aluminium oxide? So CaF2, it increases the conductivity. Of alumina, that is Al2O3. We have to extract pure aluminium from alumina. If we carry out the electrolysis of alumina itself, this is a non-conductor of electricity. So to make it a conductor of electricity, we use CaF2. So CaF2 increases the conductivity of alumina. So let's revise how we get pure aluminium starting from its oxide. And
so this is the end of our first extraction, that is extraction of aluminum. So along with this, you have to remember few points that I will tell you, because during the extraction process, one particular instrument, apparatus is also used in Hall-Hérold process. This diagram is there in the book, so that you can note it down now, and it is on page number 158 NCERT book, figure 6.6. There it is mentioned. So you can remember this. That's why it is very important. Okay. This is the first thing I want to share to you. And secondly, one more point I want to discuss with you. If you have the book with you, you can look at the page 158. If you have no book with you, so I'll tell you, you can mention one more point, because during the electrolysis process, we are using two electrodes. One is anode, another is cathode. And here, the two electrodes are made up of the same substance, carbon. You can mention that. Okay. Carbon function as the anode and carbon function as the cathode also. But it is in two different forms. Anode is in the form of rods and cathode is in the form of inner lining of the vessel, which we are using for the process. Okay. So during the process, you can see that oxygen is released from the electrode. Which electrode oxygen is eliminated? It is from anode. So anode is made up of carbon only. You know that oxygen is highly reactive. It has higher affinity towards carbon. Oxygen reacts with the carbon, which is present in the form of anode rod. Their reaction taking place, forming carbon dioxide. Okay. So that means when the process is going on, anode rod is getting consumed. And theoretical or experimental analysis prove that for every kilogram of aluminum, 0.5 kilogram of carbon gets consumed. That means, suppose we want to produce 1 kilogram of aluminum through this process, 500 gram of carbon is consumed. So, because of this reason, periodically we have to change the anode. We have to change. Once it gets totally consumed, that plant can't be used no more. It is of not further use. So, periodically anode rod has to be replaced. So this is the point I want to discuss with you. This is not there in the slide, in the video, so that's why this point you can add. Okay. uh, what is the electrode? Both carbon is function as anode and cathode, where first case and in the anode carbon is function as carbon is in the form of rod, and second case it is in the form of lining. And one of the product of process is oxygen. It reacts with the carbon, forming carbon dioxide. Since it is consuming during that process, it has to be changed periodically. So this is the point we want to discuss. This is all about the extraction of aluminum. So this is the first one. This is the first point, and second we will switch on to next process. For that I want to do again another source, want to do with another one. So let us think the second stage. There we will discuss extraction of iron, extraction of copper, extraction of zinc. Along with that, we have to discuss Ehrlingham diagram. It is also a part of extraction of element. So let us think about next topic. It will take 1 minute. Wait. Hardik, screen is visible or not?
Yes, ma'am,
Hardik?
it is visible.
Okay, very good. So we will discuss this point, thermodynamic and electrochemical principles of metallurgy. This topic is easy. Still, we will first discuss this point. Okay. You can put the topic thermodynamic and electrochemical principles of metallurgy. This is also important. Why it is important? Because it is important for conceptual questioning. Okay, so that's why take care of this. In metallurgical processes, you try to understand, no need of note it down. Okay, just read it properly. In metallurgical processes, the basic concepts of thermodynamics can help in deciding the optimal temperature condition. Optimal temperature means it is neither low nor high. It is at the beginning. Maybe you can remember that in Haber process, for the manufacture of ammonia, we are using an optimum temperature. Optimum temperature of about 423 degrees Celsius. Okay, optimum. It is neither low nor high. It is for the purpose of getting maximum yield of the product. So that is why here also it is mentioned deciding the optimal temperature. Optimal temperature means a temperature has to be maintained at the optimum range. It can also help in predicting reducing agents that can be used for reducing metal oxide to metal. At any specified temperature, we can predict feasibility of a process in terms of Gibbs energy change involved. Gibbs energy is also there. So let us think about this. Is important. This slide is important. So you can see that one formula is given, one equation is given at the beginning, one formula. Delta G is equal to delta H minus T delta S. Delta G stands for Gibbs free energy change. What is Gibbs free energy change? Gibbs free energy. What do you mean by Gibbs free energy? It is the amount of energy available from the system for useful work. That is called the Gibbs energy. Second is enthalpy change. Enthalpy change means it is the amount of heat which is associated during the process. Entropy change. Entropy. Entropy means degree of disorder of the system. Since all the three variables are state variable are those variables which depends on initial and the final state. Since all the three are belong to the same category, state variable, we can take the change in free energy, change in enthalpy change in entropy change. And last one is temperature, and this temperature must be in Kelvin scale. Now you can note down the next point, very important. These all points are very important. For a spontaneous process, delta G will be always negative. Very important. Greater the negative value, greater will be the feasibility of the process. So from the above equation, up to this it is important, try to note it down. Okay. From the above equation, we can infer that the value of T delta S would be increased in order to cause an increase in the negative value of delta G. So this you can avoid this one. Okay. So I will tell you there are three conditions for a spontaneous process. Okay. And first one is enthalpy change. See, when we focus on enthalpy change, two things are there. There are some reactions where enthalpy change is negative. That means they are exothermic process. For example, when we dissolve sulfuric acid in water, large amount of heat energy is evolved. So that means delta H is negative. At the same time, the process is dissolution. When we perform the same experiment with glucose, glucose is also a chemical compound. When we dissolve glucose in water, the heat energy is not evolved. Instead, we feel cold. That means during the process, the heat absorbed from the surroundings. So that means it is an endothermic process. So this is contradictory to each other. That means sometimes dissolution is an exothermic process, sometimes dissolution is an endothermic process where delta H is positive. Because of this contradiction, delta H is not considered as the only criteria to decide whether the process is spontaneous or not. Now, which are the two factors left? One is delta G, another is delta S. There you can mention that for a spontaneous process, delta G will be negative and delta S will be positive. Okay. This is the point you have to mention in your copy. For a spontaneous process, delta G will be negative and delta S will be positive. So, all together we can remember delta H and delta S, delta G and delta S. Okay, so let us come to the next one. If the reactants and products of two reactions are kept together in a system, and if the value of Gibbs energy is negative, then the overall reaction will be occur. This involves coupling of two such reactions to obtain negative value of delta G. I will explain this point. Okay. When carbon reacts with oxygen, so I will give another example. It is not exactly related to the topic. It is related to the concept. Okay. When carbon reacts with oxygen, forming obviously carbon dioxide. But here there is one more possibility. One more product is also there, carbon monoxide. So we can split the reaction into two steps. First step is carbon react with oxygen, forming carbon monoxide. This carbon, second step is carbon monoxide reacts with oxygen, forming carbon dioxide. Okay. So carbon reacts with oxygen, it is considered as a spontaneous process. No, it is not a spontaneous process. It takes little bit heat energy. Why it is required? Because when we combine these two equations, delta G value will not be that much high, highly negative. So it is not considered as a spontaneous process. So, but there are some other reactions. Those reactions we can write it into split reactions. At a time, single net reaction, the delta G value may or may not be negative. But when we combine two equations, as we have done in Hess's law of constant heat of summation in thermodynamics, 11th class. So when we combine two equations, if the overall delta G value will be negative, so the reaction is considered as a spontaneous reaction. Okay. Up to this, you have to remember. So write this point. This is important. Write it in short way. If the reactants and products of two reactions are kept together in a system, and if the value of net Gibbs energy of the two possible reaction is negative, then you can remember. Then you can write the this part only. The overall reaction will be occur. This involves coupling. Coupling means a combine two equations together of two such reactions to obtain negative value of delta G. Okay, so this is important. Next topic, it is very, very important. Write Elingham diagram. You know that this is totally related to this diagram. This diagram is known as Elingham diagram. In fact, this diagram is also in your book. It is already there in the book General Principle, this same chapter. And it is a part of the topic only. It is on page number 155, figure number 6.4. And this diagram seems to be complicated, but this is not complicated. At least you must remember which are the things you plot on x-axis and which are the things you plot on y-axis. That you have to try to remember. First of all, look at y-axis. What are the values mentioned on y-axis? Look at that. Delta G naught value. So what is delta G naught? Standard Gibbs free energy. Standard, not. 0 stands for standard. Delta G means a change in free energy. So standard change in free energy, Gibbs energy plotted on y-axis. You can mention it will be start from minus 1000. Then when it is moving up, the value become positive. On x-axis, the temperature is mentioned and the temperature is in which unit? Kelvin. So this is the definition of this diagram that you have to take. The graph of Gibbs energy or formation of the oxide of elements versus temperature is called the Elingham diagram. Second point is also important. Elingham diagram helps in predicting the feasibility of the thermal reduction of the ore. Look at the graph. Everywhere you can see metal oxides because this is a diagram which is related to the formation of only oxides. So these 2 points you can mention. Diagram as such you are not remembering. No need to remember it as such. I will tell you how to ask the portion. Means how the conceptual questions frame from the topic that I will discuss with you in the next class. Okay, because it will take 15 minutes. So today's time is not sufficient. So that's why we will do it in the next class. So we will stop it here. Okay. So now we will come to the last portion of the class.